Well, what the NMC is doing or may have done and been very much instrumental in Parliament passing an LI 2224, which apparently seem to have irked the anger of many critics of the media, but also those who tend to practice about whether that very regulation, that very LI, would result in content regulation. And so it's just a quasi means to make sure that we still promote criminal libel. We know that has been plunged out of our books, but maybe surreptitiously just being brought back, is it? Gary Nimakun is a legal practitioner. He is here with us to help us do a discussion. The whole issue is to help us understand the issues better. What does the LI say?
Well, should I greet your viewers first?
You have a certain constituent out there, so greet.
You know, this is the first time in a year that we've been here.
Yes.
So I have to wish you a happy new year.
Thank you.
And all Ghanaians, all the big boys, small boys, everybody in Ghana, we wish all of you well.
Thank you.
Good. I think that basically what the LI, which has now brought this whole brouhaha and furore, in substance, as I've heard the boss of Giba say, that most of the provisions in the LI, they are okay with it, especially the areas where they talk about, the time to show certain films, especially if, for instance, you are with your kids in the afternoon, and then maybe they are showing some film, quote unquote, with some sexy, sort of scenes in it, quite uncomfortable. To those areas, they say they are okay with it. They have no qualms. It appears, in my view, that listening to the debate, where they have a problem with is the aspect which talks about the fact that you require a license, more or less, or what they call a content authorization to air programs. I think that is what the confusion is now. Now, I have listened to the chairman of the Media Commission. That is Mr. Kwesi Janapinti. Now, when I listened to him, the explanation that he gave was that what they meant by content authorization was basically when you make an application to them and you fill your forms and what have you, they will now have to tell you your entire program outlet must be within this sort of range. That means they are not, to them, saying that the specific program that you are doing or you are showing or broadcasting is going to be regulated. That is what he is saying. Now, I found that a bit problematic, because if you look at the letter of the law or the wording, how it has been couched, it doesn't give that impression that what he is saying is suggestive of what it ought to be. If you look at the way it has been couched, if you may permit me, I will just kindly read it to you. And it says that is Regulation 3.1 of LI. That is 2. It doesn't matter. This morning we are not going to be legalese here, as my friend.
2224.
It said, let me quote. It said, an operator here, obviously, we mean the TV station, the radio station,
the medium that is carrying it.
Exactly. An operator shall not, and the shall, using any legalistic language, is mandatory. It is not permissive. That means you must comply with it.
It's an obligation.
It's an obligation. You must comply with it. Now, an operator shall not convey or permit to be carried. Now, you shall not convey. That means it's a blanket no. Or permit to be carried out content on a public electronic communication service or a broadcasting service without, and the without is underlined, without obtaining a content authorization from the commission. And the commission here is the National Media Commission. Now, what is the content that you are talking about? What content? What do you people bring out? You see, I think this program that we are doing, what we are churning out is the content.
It's the content, yes.
Is that not the case? Good. Now they are saying here that you will not do so without taking permission from them. So my question here is that, how do they regulate the specific programs by program that they will churn out in this form? Are you getting the point I'm making? Now they are saying that if you do not do so, there's an offense that is carried out. That is, an operator who contravenes sub-regulation 1 commits an offense and is liable to, on summary conviction, to a fine of not less than 5,000 penalty units. And the penalty unit now, I think, is about something, 10 Ghana or whatever, I'm not too sure. But it's quite a lot of money. Or
5,000 penalty units.
Penalty units, or to a term of imprisonment of not less than 2 years or more. Now, I sit back and I look at the entire regime, and I ask myself one basic question, that the law on media freedom is guaranteed under the Constitution of the Republic.
That's what the mainstream Constitution is saying.
Yes, it's guaranteed. Now, if you look at the Constitution, specifically Article 162, and your permission to, I also refer you. I hope I'm not being too legalist.
No, that's okay.
Good.
I mean, we need to get the interpretation, and I'm very much happy because I've read the law too, and I've read what's in the Constitution. Our audience need it.
Right. Now, Chapter 5. The heading is Freedom and Independence of the Media. Freedom and Independence of the Media. Now, if you go to 162.1, it said the freedom and independence of the media are hereby guaranteed. That means nobody can get up and attempt to gag the media. Don't forget that in Ghana, we have moved from a certain culture, a culture of silence. Before the 1992 Constitution, we've moved from that level where media could not even speak. People kept quiet in this country. They were not allowed to speak. And when you speak or publish anything, and it is seen libelous or whatever it is, you are taken to prison as a punishment. Now, 2 says, there shall be no censorship in Ghana. Now, what is censorship? What is censorship? Because you must try to bring it down so that our people will understand exactly what we are talking about. Censorship simply means it's a suppression of what? Speech. Suppression of speech. Public communication or other information, which normally is being done by governments or institutions.
Usually that's the norm.
Suppression of speech. Now the law says the supreme law, which is the group norm. This law is the supreme law of Ghana.
So it means that all
other laws in this country are subservient to the national constitution. So the law says there shall be no censorship in Ghana, which means that the media freedom is guaranteed. The media freedom is protected under the Constitution. Now, let's go to the Clause 4. The Clause 4 also says that the editors and publishers of newspapers and and other institutions of the mass media shall not, and here too another shall has come here, which is a mandatory provision, be subject to the control or interference by government, nor shall they be penalized, and I underline the word penalized, harassed for their editorial opinions or their views or the content of their publication. So you have to now run this law vis-a-vis the regulation which has come into effect and see whether or not by obtaining an authorization prior to publishing content, you will be saying that now you are subjecting the media to some form of censorship. Because it is saying that you cannot do that. So are we saying that by now come telling them, look, media persons, you need us to give you the authorization? That which simply means that without the authorization, you cannot do it. But media freedom here is guaranteed. Because the media is very important in democratic processes, because you are the fourth estate of the realm. The media is the fourth estate of the realm, and the media must ensure that they protect the citizenry, the weak and the meek, the people who cannot speak for themselves. So the media is there.
Are there fears that even though within the current dispensation or jurisdiction as we have it, this law could operate, but it could be subject to some misapplication someday, somewhere?
That is entirely correct. You see, I was in the house when I heard this.
So that could get us into a reversal of a certain status.
That is a position. You see, sometimes, like I was hearing the chairman of the NMC saying that no, their intention is not what is being now put out there. I don't need to pick the law and go to NMC for interpretation before applying the law. You see, the law should be plain and obvious, so that the ordinary man on the street of Makola,
Why is
the ordinary man on the street.
Is it ambiguous?
No, if you look
or
at,
it's subject to interpretation.
If you look at the way the wording has been couched,
the framing.
Yes, clearly, it is not in tandem with the Constitution, and that is why if you go to Article 1.2, and 2.1, it tells you clearly that look, the law is supreme, the Constitution is supreme, and that any other law which is inconsistent with the Constitution, you bring it to the Supreme Court.
Are you seeing the current status quo as we have it, prior to the promulgation of this very law? So this very legislative instrument was better within the current regime or atmosphere, was better at making sure that the media was a lot more circumspect. The media just didn't throw matters to the dogs.
You see, let's take it this way. We have to be careful when we seek to put in regulations. Nobody is saying that you cannot regulate the media landscape. Nobody is saying that. The fact of freedom of speech expression does not mean you can say anything that you want to say. That's the reason why if the media publishes the libelous statement about somebody or the defamatory statement about somebody, the remedy is that you must go, they will sue you in court to come and answer. You understand? The fact that you have a freedom doesn't mean you can say anything.
So you're saying even within the current atmosphere, we have the checks that could prevent whatever it is the intent of this very libel.
The checks and balances...
Morally, you say we have it.
The checks and balances exist in the law of torts. That if somebody, for some reason, you go on a frolic of your own and decide to make certain defamatory statements about people using your medium, you'll be sued.
Do I get the mindset that then this legislative instrument was not necessary after all?
No. You see...
Or certain aspects...
Exactly. If I've listened to them, the commentaries all around, you know...
To you, it makes sense.
They are saying that most of the portions to them are okay. You know, they don't have a problem with it.
That is Giba.
But these are the areas that they have problem with. And that is the reason why we go for constitutional interpretation. You see, there have been instances in this country where people have gone to the Supreme Court just to interpret the word, whether a certain business or a certain thing formed within a business in Ghana or international trade. You know, so basically, for me, we should be very careful so that we don't do things that tomorrow it will appear that certain persons are trying to use a certain regime or certain regulation to say that, look, Joy FM or Modi TV or whatever it is.
What you want to broadcast?
You cannot do it.
Okay.
And when you do it...
Because it's subject to that person's interpretation or that institution's...
Exactly. And when you do it without the authorization as you claim, or when you go say, well, look, we will not give you authorization to do this work.
Or if you do it...
And when you do it, the punishment will flow as a consequence of what you have done. And they say there's imprisonment. Now, how do you take somebody to prison for publishing something?
All right.
How do you, because it's a civil remedy.
I want to take an insert. When I come back, I'll ask you what a hypothetical scenario could be if, let's say, we leave this to be in our books or we don't undertake all these protestations. Because the debate on the new LI which seeks to regulate the content on air, seems unending. And my colleague Ekosam has been interacting with Suleiman Brahima of the Media Foundation for West Africa to get some perspective on the matter from the foundation's own point.
I think that people who say, well, it's a reintroduction of the criminal libel law may not be far from right, except that they are different in names. But in terms of what both laws do is that the ultimate thing is that it can throw somebody in jail. And I think essentially the difference between criminal libel law and the civil libel that we have now is that under civil libel, you don't go to prison for saying your mind or for writing something. But with this piece of legislation, I think it criminalizes aspects of media infraction, and therefore one would not be wrong in saying that it's a reintroduction of the criminal libel law.
Now, I want us to take this one by one. The law seeks to control, or you need authorizations for your content. For a layperson, what does this mean?
Well, I think when I read the entire document, what I didn't find is there is a section that is dedicated to interpretation. So in academic sense, we would have said operational definition of terms. What I didn't find there is this whole thing about content authorization and what it means. My assumption is that, and based on various elements of the LI, I think it would be right to assume that what it means is before you put out content on air, or let's say the AM show, multimedia should have sent whatever the program format is, what the content would be, what the issues would be, who are the sponsors of the program, what kinds of advertisement will run on the program, the time for the program and discussants on the program to the National Media Commission. And the Commission should have given prior authorization before multimedia can put this program on air. And I think that this is a clear case of pre-publication censorship, which I think, as many would say, is one of the worst forms of censorship that we can have in the media industry.
And so you think that is ridiculous? Because from where I sit, it's more like, okay, so if you want to plan for tomorrow's show, it means that we need to send a copy of what we have planned to the NMC for approval. But there are others that are saying that this may be one way or the other, we are losing the right to freedom of expression.
Well, perhaps I should say that I doubt if the intent is that every edition of the AM show must be subjected to approval by the National Media Commission. I think it will be the AM show by itself, so that you give a description of the show, what it will entail, what content will be discussed, and so on and so forth.
But plans change along the way.
Well, so in the legislation, it says that when plans change, you have to go back to the National Media Commission for authorization. So, as I said, I think that is the whole package of the program. That is not to say that it is good, because, as you rightly say, in the course of it, some changes may happen all of a sudden, and then if the requirement is that at any point in time when there is a change in content or the idea behind the program, you have to go back to the NMC, I think that is not the right way to go, and that is not the right approach to go. The other part of it, which makes it even worse, is that if you don't get the content authorization before you broadcast, you are liable to, it's an offense, and that you can be subjected to a fine or a term of imprisonment between 2 to 5 years, or both. And then there is also another section that is about content standard guidelines. And what it says is that those are guidelines that the National Media Commission would give out for media operators to operate on the basis of those guidelines. And if you happen to broadcast outside those guidelines, again, you are liable to a fine or a term of imprisonment, or both. And I think that this is really, to quote you, quite ridiculous that at this day and age, Ghana would want to go back to these kinds of media regulation.
How do we sanitize the system?
Well, I think quite a number of things, and people have been working on all these. As I said, first of all, the National Media Commission quite clearly, as the lead organization when it comes to independence and professionalism in the media, need to have some powers to bite, and those powers must be civil powers. So powers to impose fines, powers to revoke licenses, and so on and so forth would be in order. I think that as many have continued to do, training is essential. Journalists need to still go through a lot of training, particularly as we are in a country where our training institutions, academic training institutions, are all about theory rather than practice. And so it's important for routine training programs to take place. At the same time, I think that our owners have a responsibility in terms of maintaining the best journalistic practices. Now, the other big issue is with the National Communications Authority that issued the licenses. Who are the people receiving the licenses? Today, I think that politicians, active politicians, own radio stations more than those who are, just private people or business people who want to use the media for business. And if we continue to issue licenses to active politicians whose interest simply is to use the airways for propaganda and for partisan interest, then we would have a difficult battle. So the NCA also has a role to play in terms of being meticulous and being careful about who they grant broadcast licenses to.
Well, Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleiman Abrahima, speaking to my colleague, Derek Ekosam. But that's where it is. So how do we, with all these views that we're having based on how the interpretation is, it means that it could be subject in the future in a certain hypothetical situation where if the law is, or that very aspect of the regulation is left to hold, could be subject to some level of abuse. Is that the fear?
It is not even some level of abuse. It will actually be used to, you are in Africa, don't forget, you are in Africa.
And we have precedents.
You see, it is not Europe. And what you must understand is that you can have a benevolent dictator who will, take over the helms of government, and then will sit at the Flagstaff House, and then will look at certain publications or certain media stations which, in the view of that administration, they think that that station is inimical to his interest, and then will subject everything that you are doing to scrutiny, including telling you what to publish, what not to publish. And when you churn it out,
all based on law.
It's a regulation, it's a law. You see, one thing that we must understand, that a law, no matter how bad it is still law. Until you go and set it aside.
But why are we crying foul? It should help sanitize the industry and make sure that the politicians also are safe, the media too is safe.
No, how does this one sanitize the industry?
Okay.
This particular, how does it sanitize the industry? They are telling you that the way you do your work, we are going to control how you do your work.
That's censorship.
Yes, so bring it to us for us to approve. Before it doesn't work like that.
What will be the level of advocacy or advice you give? That it should be expunged?
To who? Advice to who? My advice to who?
Oh, okay.
To the media houses, or my advice to who?
No, okay. Now
because
it's
now it's law. So people who think that they are adversely affected by it, they can decide to resort to the Supreme Court for interpretation, to have that law,
So that's the option.
That's the option. That's the option available, because now it is law. No matter how you see whether it's good, whether you think it's good law or bad law, it is still law, and you have to obey it.
How come we gloss over this as a society, as media? It means we're not involved in the consultative processes.
Well, I listened to Giba, the president, and he said that they were involved, and then at the last minute they said they would go and come back. They didn't come again, so they realized that somebody has just put a thing under the carpet and then they've been passed into law.
But that may not be so. It's because they didn't fully participate.
It is possible that maybe they didn't go to the tail end of it, you see. But you see, when there's a law which will affect your interests or how you operate your business, you must follow it to the very end, even through the Parliamentary Select Committee, to ask them how it is going. Because you see, whatever comes out of it will affect your interests. And this one, it is not only the media interest, but even to the people of Ghana. Because if it turns out one day that I sit at the Flagstaff as the president of Ghana, and I say, look, I think that you, Joy FM or multimedia, you are worrying me. So this program go off air. That program should go off air.
Or let's say an investigation has been done. You know that it's going to affect the reputation of
yes.
You can say once it's brought here, the content is not good.
It's not good. Your publication. So I said, don't do it. And that is why we are saying that this amounts to censorship. And the Constitution says that there shall be no censorship in Ghana. It is not me saying it. You understand? And that is the reason why, look, people sometimes, I don't understand. We must understand in this country that we live in a democratic regime. And therefore, if people sometimes want to do some smuggle thing through the system and then pass into law, somebody will see it and then will apply the force of the law. That look, the Constitution says that any other law that is inconsistent with the Constitution brings the Supreme Court for interpretation. And if it is shown that it is actually inconsistent, the Supreme Court knows what to do. The court will strike it down. Because the court will not sit down for subsidiary legislation to run counter with the Constitution. The court will not do that. So basically, I think that going forward, we should not look at what Mr. The MNMC boss was saying, that they do not intend that bring every program to them for authorization or whatever it is. But they are saying that bring the entire thing. But nobody should pick a law and take it to NMC for interpretation before applying the law. It shouldn't be like that.
So who should petition who? Who should be doing the petitioning to the Supreme Court?
Oh, who should file the case?
Sure.
Oh, as is now, any citizen
Interest
of Ghana,
groups.
Any citizen of Ghana can do it because now it's a constitutional interpretation.
You're a lawyer. Do you intend doing that?
Oh no! Already, I've now come to make a comment on the matter. I can't do any further than that. So the persons, those lawyers, there are other people who have been quiet and they are also following the matter. Anybody, even citizens of Ghana, anybody.
But you're just an interested party. You thought it's something that we also need to talk about. So when we invited you, logically, you agreed.
Oh yes, I came to just at least help Ghanaians to understand my view on the matter.
But I think that as far as the interpretation has been and the education has been from you and for all those who have been educating us the last 12 hours, it's been succinct and very much well thought of. Right. Very good interpretation. But so if the Supreme Court says the LI holds, what happens?
No,
then it's a law.
No. You see, it is not the entire LI.
That content.
It's not the entire LI, which is now under dispute. It is a specific provision. This 1 and 2. That
provision.
Exactly. That is what they are seeking for constitutional interpretation, as whether that provision is consistent or inconsistent with the Constitution. You see, it's not the entire. That's why I'm saying that they are saying that.
People are saying we're okay, but it's only 1 or 2.
Exactly. So it is not the entire LI which is under challenge. So I thought that if they had done proper consultation, this thing could have been removed or deleted, before passing into law.
But the Media Commission has got lawyers and things like that.
See, it is not my attitude to sit at any program to cast aspersion at anybody. That's not my attitude. I will not go there at all.
Okay.
What I want to say simply is that people think that the law in some way is inimical to their interests or how they operate, and by and large how they will be affected and Ghanaians will be affected through the way they do their programs. Okay. And you see, if there is a way that for some reason people will not have the information because they say we have not given you authorization to do it, the population will suffer. Or there's an information about some corruption or something that somebody thinks that, look, don't publish it because I have not authorized you to do so. And you go and do it. And they say, well, by so doing, I'm giving you a fine or taking you to prison. Then it is a backdoor way of gagging the media some way, somehow. That is why I have a problem with it. So the people who think that now, the way things are going, they want to take up the step, I think they are entitled to, in their right to proceed to court.
Well, thank you very much. Gary Nimako, we'll have to call it a morning. He's a legal practitioner and giving us an interpretation to that very law.
Let me ask you one question. Why is that every time my surname is being deleted from all?
What's your surname?
It's Mafo.
But
they say Gary Nimako. But the name is Gary Nimako Mafo.
So we've had in the studio Gary Nimako Mafo. Gary Mafo. That's not it too. It's Gary Nimako Mafo. And thank you very much. He's a legal practitioner. And the name of your chambers?
No, that would be advertising.
All right. We're taking a break. When we come back, we will be talking a lot more entertainment. So do stay on.